What makes a good harem anime? Redo Fila is yet another entry into the anime canon of controversial and polarising debate. Some score it highly as a meme, much like interspecies reviewers before it. Others write the whole thing off for its intense subject matters. Let's today try to have a quick look at the show from a more impartial standpoint, giving it as much benefit of the doubt as we can. Music, direction, and animation. This production is where we can be the most objective about the show, and temporarily cast aside the politics of the matter. In terms of OST, it's mediocre at best. The general backing tracks are almost all mellow and drab, which might seem tonally fitting, and to a certain degree they are, but before long they drag on you, and make some of the already badly directed scenes all the worst. The two tracks used during almost all of the hentai and deep contemplation scenes are possibly the worst on the track list, yet see by far the most use, and even the more upbeat of the action tracks feel unoriginal and lackluster at best. To give credit where due, the intro and outro are quite nice, but otherwise it's a very poor showing. The direction is a little tricky. On the one hand, the director is above average at what they do. However, they make some baffling decisions that have to be taken into account. As most will know, many anime, infamously those of Studio Shaft in particular, can go to air with backgrounds or facial expressions rushed, only to be fixed in the Blu-ray. Yet with Redo we have something a little different. For hentai scenes, even airing in the nighttime block, they are just simply too graphic. As such, the show cuts to still images that pan across the screen. This goes on sometimes for minutes at a time with nothing, not even dialogue, only the worst of the OST tracks for company. To be clear, I'm here to judge a TV show, and neither you or I are here to make excuses for a property. If they couldn't show these scenes, then they shouldn't have been left in. The solution is easy. Though uncommon, 16-minute anime do exist. Minari of Friends is one recent example. And I'd put it that this show should have aired as a 16-minute production, with the Blu-ray exclusively having the extra sex scenes. That way, with simple fade to black, you can imply what's happening and move on. In short, any anime that for minutes every episode is either highly censored or essentially on a quick visual hiatus has dramatically failed in the direction department. Finally, we have the animation, which is by far the show's strongest selling point. The fights move dynamically with flourish, and the general character designs, while fairly generic, stand out just enough to the point that you know they're from this show. The fight against the Swordmaster and later Hawkeye are both superb, and the explosion of blood and guts in the final episode puts Elfenlied to shame. But bluntly, for what is required to make this story function, they do more than enough, and this is without doubt the show's most undeniably strong selling point, to which almost half of the rating I've given it comes from. Story and characters. The story of Redo presents us with an interesting conundrum. What is an ecchi harem anime? The fact is, I do my best to understand everything I watch and read from its own perspective. Therefore, what is Redo's perspective? The thing many seem to misunderstand is the harem genre is not porn. Heck, even the ecchi genre borderline fails to reach this standard. 4 seasons of High School DxD in, and there is still no confirmed instances of sex between any of the cast. Same goes for the likes of High School of the Dead, Monster Musume, No Game No Life, Infinite Stratus, Danmachi, SAO, etc., etc. No, rather the genres are more aimed at young adults and teenagers. The use of objectified men and women, as well as fan service, is more like a tool to bring people in. Sex sells. In a sense, you can look at it like you would the mecha genre. Giant robots are seldom good just because they're giant robot shows. You may like a show just for the robots, sure, but generally speaking, the mechs are a gateway. Gundam has almost never been about robots. Rather, it's about war and drama and space wizards. Yet it is the often credited original real robot show. And the point is, a good giant robot anime generally uses the robots as little more than a vehicle, a way to sell toys so that they can tell real stories about tragic people, climate change, understanding one another, etc. Moreover, I believe harems operate in much the same way. Zero no Tsukaima is a classic harem show, but it is also deeply laced with morality and the beliefs of the author, who understood a burgeoning and prosperous second-generation post-war Japan, a peace that country had found that was worth appreciating. Shuffle is a supernatural harem show that spends its run exploring metaphor for physical and mental health issues. And Clannad, of all things, is a harem that uses its setting, and this applies to the majority, to explore the lives and struggles of a group of young, relatable people, who just so happen to all like the same guy. I'm a large advocate of not looking up our noses at supposed lesser genres. The harem genre can be just as complex and nuanced as any other. Like mecha, it is just a vehicle, a genre tag, no more and no less. Sure, plenty try to be little more than a quick cash-filled trope fest, but you can say that of literally any other genre. So then, does Redo fit into this mold? Not exactly. Redo fails greatly in that it's not true porn due to the mass censorship, but not an ecchi because it's still too extreme, and it's not got the heart or wholesomeness of a good harem, because everyone is his slave or whatever. As for the actual plot, there is sort of teams, kind of. Many have posted, and rightfully so, that there does appear to be a message about revenge and a question of if it's morality, when the actions of the protagonist do indeed seem to improve the terrible world he lives in. Further, there actually seems to be some commentary buried in here, with things like the shared demon-human city being a more prosperous place than the rest of the kingdom, with even its feudal lord, we don't see but hear about, seemingly being an honest person who refuses to relent to the invading imperial army's demands. However, it's hard to give the show the benefit of the doubt when it also has the protagonists whose sex slaves based solely on looks. The two princesses arguably do more evil to him than any other in the world, yet he keeps them, well, spoiler, brutally killing Hawkeye, to our knowledge, had done literally nothing wrong. Not to our protagonist, anyway. As for the Blade hero, her acts against the protagonist are terrible, downright abhorrent, but are far lesser to that of what the princess did to him. Further, she's a woman of substantial fighting ability, but he doesn't pick her because I guess the plot needed to give the protag a magic gauntlet or something, and he couldn't have just removed it from her once she became enslaved? Questioning the logic of this show leads to some interesting sentences. End of spoiler. In this regard, it's hard to be sure if the teams actually have any weight when really they just come across as hollow excuses for all the debauchery we witness. The rest of the show is generic fantasy, with the gang travelling from town to town, helping out here and there and selling produce. Essentially rising of the shield hero, but with more hentai. The characters fare little better, and there isn't much to say on them. The protagonist's actions often feel due to plot holes rather than his apparent insanity or morality code, and everyone else is set up to be cruel and immoral as possible in an almost nihilistic setting. This in itself isn't actually an issue, see Megalian, but rather the way it's handled is unremarkable, and while they do mostly serve the story being told to an adequate degree, it's hard to give them much praise. Conclusion. Reader of Healer is one of those rare examples of a show actually being as bad as everyone says it is. It isn't trying to depict complex and uncomfortable topics in order to comment on them, ergo Goblin Slayer or School Days, nor is it a fun, rompy fantasy adventure harem. No, instead, Reader of Healer is 12 well-animated episodes of extremely kinky hentai, except with said hentai being completely censored throughout, leading it to somehow fail on almost every front. All told, I think it is a bit like the prior mentioned Elfen Light, touching on some deeper themes and messages, but without anything productive to say on them, or any real care for the groups who've suffered these forms of atrocity, and the needed understanding to display such things in a mature manner. If you want to watch it as something of a meme game, trying each episode to guess if it can actually get any worse, all while skipping about a fifth of the runtime due to blank scenes, then it may have some value like it did for me. Further, if these kinks suit you, maybe you might even want to acquire the Blu-ray version. However, I feel I can safely say that for the vast majority of us, you can safely skip this one, in the knowledge that it definitely isn't some misunderstood secret gem. I hope you enjoyed this short review. Please press the like button and maybe even subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.